Has been widely touted as one of the most productive in recent years, but one thing that did not get done before lawmakers called it quits for the summer was the creation of a state-run health insurance exchange. Now, under the health care reform bill that was passed by the Democratic Congress in 2010 and then quickly signed into law by President Obama, states are required to set up these exchanges, and if they do not, then the federal government does it for them. Before lawmakers left Albany in June, it seemed like the Assembly and the Senate had reached a deal to move forward with a plan. But then at the 11th hour, the Senate balked. And now the future of the exchanges is uncertain. That has my two guests who are here now with me pretty worried. Blair Horner is the vice president of the American Cancer Society for New York and New Jersey, and Neil Lane is the executive council member at the AARP.
Great.
Welcome.
Good to be here.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
You guys have been here before. This is not a new issue, but you are trying to build some momentum and some concern because the Senate Republicans, from what I can tell, remain completely unconcerned. You talk to the majority leader and he says, we have till 2014.
Well, that's, 2014 will either bring the federal government to New York State to run the health exchanges, or we'll do it and forfeit about $100 million that we are entitled to if we act now to build out the exchanges.
Yeah, I mean, kicking the can doesn't seem like a good plan. The exchange is supposed to be up and running on January 1st, 2014. Right. So you have to create an exchange, you have to figure out all the policy issues, you got to start allowing people to join it, all in time for 2014. That's only 2 years from now, really, in terms of making it happen.
What's the drop-dead moment that they have to pass the legislation, just pass the legislation that would then subsequently set up an exchange?
Well, I mean, it's squishy. It's squishy. The Obama administration came out with some regs just a couple weeks ago, actually, that really took their foot off the gas in terms of demanding that certain deadlines be met.
Well, that's not helpful.
No, that's not helpful at all, frankly. But there's nothing in the regs that has any effect on the legislation. When you set this issue up, the one thing to remember is the Senate Republican leadership agreed to this deal with the governor and the Assembly.
Right.
And it got torpedoed by some concerns over so-called Obamacare. And there was supposedly some Senate Republicans said that. However, there were two bills.
Yeah.
The first one passed unanimously in the Senate, and everybody forgets about that one. And it said implementation of the Affordable Care Act. All 32 Senate Republicans voted for that bill.
Was that Kemp Hannon's bill? Was that the bill that Kemp Hannon?
There were two bills. One was to change New York State law in dozens of ways to comply with the federal law. That was a Seward-Stevenson bill in the Assembly. That was an agreement. It passed unanimously in the Senate, an overwhelming bipartisan majority in the Assembly. The second bill, which just created the exchange, that's it. The corporate entity that would be known as the exchange didn't give it any powers. That was the one that got held up. So for some Senate Republicans to say, we don't want to be part of Obamacare, right after they voted for it, I think raises a question, I think, as to the real motivation.
But let us remind viewers, because it's been a little while and perhaps you've been to the beach or whatever you've been doing, this happened right around the time that they were debating gay marriage for the 9 millionth hour.
Right.
So at the same time that they were going to take a dive off the cliff and actually bring the gay marriage bill to the floor, they also maybe wanted to make a stand on something else that was making some people feel quite nervous. I mean, my understanding from what was going on inside the Senate was that people said to Senator Hannon, who's been driving the bus on this and is on Long Island and voted no on gay marriage, for the record, Obamacare, this makes us nervous, no. Do we have to? We don't have to? Okay, forget it. I mean, now you guys are trying to say, okay, you've had your time to have your slight nervous breakdown. Now it's time to come back to the table and actually make it happen,
well,
right?
It's essential. I mean, really, it is federal law. It's not like this is a choice. The healthcare exchange has to be set up, and as a taxpayer, I certainly would like to have the $100 million in federal aid to build the infrastructure versus my state tax dollars doing that.
Well, what also you're saying is it's inevitable. I mean, the Healthcare Reform Act, except for the fact that it's being challenged at the federal level, is it not the Healthcare Reform Act? The entire act could get torpedoed at the federal level.
That is certainly if it gets through the courts in a quick way, which there's some speculation that might happen, but certainly there's no assurances of that. But to dither is not the answer. I mean, we have AARP is concerned, as I'm sure the American Cancer Society is concerned, that we have 2.5 million uninsured people in the state of New York, 2.5 million. And ARP is particularly concerned about 500,000 of them who are between the ages of 50 and 64, who have no insurance, cannot get insurance. It's almost impossible for them almost at any price. And the health exchange would be a great system to help them broker and find the right coverage.
And that we should also remind viewers that this bill that we're talking about is not a bill that you guys loved every word of, right? I mean, there were some things in there that you wished had been different. Does this delay not give you an opportunity to push for changes? For much like, for example, the Help America Vote Act, I mean, New York was last in implementing that. And then some critics said, well, yes, it's true that we're last, but at least we had the opportunity not to make the same mistakes that other states made. Do we have the opportunity now to tinker with the bill so you like it a little bit more?
Well, who knows what's going to happen? I mean, that'd be nice if the bill was tinkered with and strengthened. I mean, the issue that we were most concerned about was the board of this new exchange.
Right.
We wanted to make sure that none of the individuals that sat on that were in a position where they or their business was making money off the exchange's decisions. Call us crazy, but we thought that that would be an appropriate limitation. The bill does not do that.
Well, the legislature, and I believe even some folks in the executive branch said, but there are rules regarding, for example, the Authorities Reform Act that says...
That's true. The Authorities Reform Law that passed in 2000 and I guess it was 9, says that a majority of the members must be independent.
Right.
But that means some don't. And so our argument was we wanted the whole board to be pure. But just so your viewers get this, though, I mean, the exchange is the vehicle through which uninsured people are going to buy health insurance. Right. And as Neil mentioned, there's 2.5 million people in New York that don't have health insurance. Of all of the people that are diagnosed with cancer, 10% of them don't have health insurance. And if it's a serious cancer, the best outcome, if you don't have health insurance, is a financial catastrophe. And so it's critically important to people's lives. This is not just some sort of political game.
Well, and the worst outcome is that you don't get treatment and you die from a cancer that's eminently treatable, much like any symptom of old age, that you might have a significant problem that you could be treated at the outset. We've talked so much about preventative care. Right. When you get to a point where you can't afford not to see someone, it's probably too late.
Well, and ARP did a survey in New York State back in 2009 that spoke with individuals between 50 years of age and 64 and asked them about what they were doing to cope with the lack of insurance. The biggest thing was they were 35% were either not taking any of their prescription drugs that they should have been taking, or had cut back significantly, would take a pill every other day.
Yeah.
And, 35% of these people, how is that going to turn out? It's not going to turn out well.
Right.
And that's why this is not just some sort of abstract policy debate or that should lend itself to playing political football between the governor or the Democrats, the Republicans, whatever. This is about people's lives and their health. Right. And the sooner the state gets moving on it, the much more likely it is going to be the case that we will have a system in place in New York that deals with people's real problems. And so the more they fiddle around and play games about whatever it is that's motivating them, the more we fiddle around, the more likely it is that the system that does end up in place is not going to work right. And that's bad for real people.
Okay, so here's the thing. Yep. So we know that the administration obviously finds this important because they put up a program bill on this particular topic. We know that the Senate is knowledgeable about it because they passed, as you noted, the bill that would alter the law to allow this to move forward, right? We know that the Assembly already passed it. Here's the problem. If, in fact, you alter the bill in some way to make it better, then everybody has to repass it again, and that, of course, is a problem, although the entire legislature is supposed to come back at some point because they have to approve the PEF contract. So if they do that, and our understanding is the fall is likely, after the primary perhaps in September, is that enough time, in your opinion, both of you?
Well, I think, first off, it's most important to get the bill passed. And if we need to come back at some future date and fix some of the things we're not happy about, there's another thing we're not happy about, and that's many of the health exchanges being developed in other states have a component known as active purchaser, which allows the state health exchange to encourage high-quality, low-cost health insurance options.
This is a very hands-off bill, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. And and would we like to see that? Certainly. But do we think that it's that or no bill at all? Not at all. Our position certainly is we need a bill here, and if we need to come back and fix some things, that's fine. But we need to get the federal money rolling. We need to get work on this.
Blair, last word for you.
I think that if the government creates the exchange in 2011, that will still give the state plenty of time to access some of this federal money and still create the momentum to go into 2012 and deal with some of these knottier issues about how does the exchange actually work. But the first step should be done now. The Senate leadership agreed to this 2 months ago. They should agree to it when they get back, and let's get the ball rolling.
Okay, well, we shall see. I want to thank you in the meantime, Blair. Thanks. Neil, thanks very much for being here. I appreciate it. Somehow I think that we're probably going to be talking about this for a while, but
Don't look so sad about it.
I'm sorry. You know, it's good fodder for me, but it probably should get moving. So thanks very much.